There are objects that take up space, and there are objects that take away flow. Some remain silent in corners, drawers, closets, shelves, yet spiritually, they are loud. They speak without words, they transmit messages without sound. And over time, they quietly influence the direction of prosperity inside a home. If you are listening to this now, understand something clearly. This moment is not accidental. In the language of ancient wisdom, nothing arrives early, nothing arrives late, and nothing arrives without reason. There is a reason this warning is reaching you now. Before we go any further, I invite you to support this work. If teachings rooted in ancient wisdom, spiritual clarity, and conscious living resonate with you, subscribe now to the channel Jewish Wisdom. Your subscription is not just a number, it is a way of keeping this knowledge alive and flowing forward. And before we open this teaching, I want you to do something simple but powerful. Write this sentence in the comments, exactly as it is, and let it become a declaration. My home is aligned with blessing and flow. Now allow yourself to settle. This is not a message meant to rush you. It is meant to awaken awareness. In the Jewish spiritual tradition, prosperity is never random. It is not luck. It is not chance. It is not something that chases people who run faster or work harder alone. Prosperity is a response to alignment. When inner order and outer order reflect one another, blessing finds a place to rest. The Torah speaks often about space, not only physical land, but inner space. A home is not merely a shelter. In Hebrew thought, a home is a vessel. And like any vessel, what it contains determines what it can hold. This is why the sages paid attention to details others ignored. Not only prayer, not only study, but objects, placement, order, what is kept, what is released, what lingers long after it has served its purpose. There is a quiet teaching preserved across generations, rarely spoken directly, because it requires maturity to understand. The teaching is simple, yet unsettling. Not everything neutral remains neutral over time. Some things, when held too long, begin to resist movement. And prosperity, by its nature, is movement. In the book of Genesis, creation itself begins with separation. Light from darkness, waters above from waters below. Order emerges, not by adding more, but by discerning what belongs where. The sages understood this pattern deeply. Creation flowed when boundaries were honored. A home that desires blessing must reflect that same principle. Yet most people never question what they keep around them. They assume that because something is familiar, it is harmless. Because it is old, it is sentimental. Because it once had value, it must still deserve space. But spiritual law does not respond to nostalgia. It responds to present alignment. Rabbinic tradition teaches that a house absorbs intention. Walls listen. Objects remember. Not in a mystical fantasy sense, but in a spiritual reality sense. Everything that occupies space participates in the atmosphere of that space. This is why certain homes feel heavy the moment you enter them, even when they are beautiful, and why others feel light, even when they are simple. Prosperity does not enter spaces that argue with it. This is not superstition, it is consciousness. The ancient rabbis warned that stagnation invites constriction, and constriction is the opposite of blessing. Blessing requires openness, not only of the heart, but of the environment. There are items people hold on to out of fear. Fear of lack, fear of loss, fear of letting go. Ironically, these fears embed themselves into the space and begin to echo back into daily life as delays, blockages, and repeated struggles. In Jewish ethics, this is called feedback of consciousness. What you tolerate around you teaches you what you believe you deserve. And this is where the warning begins. Because the issue is not that people want prosperity. Almost everyone does. The issue is that many unknowingly guard the very things that contradict it. They pray for flow while keeping reminders of stagnation. They ask for increase while holding on to symbols of depletion. They speak words of faith while living among objects of interruption. The sages did not ignore this contradiction. They addressed it carefully, knowing that revelation must come in layers. Wisdom revealed too quickly is often rejected. Wisdom revealed slowly becomes transformation. So let me be clear. Nothing I am about to share is meant to create fear. Fear closes. This teaching opens. It is meant to restore awareness. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. And once you align, flow responds. In the Psalms, it is written that blessing rests where there is order and peace, not perfection. Order is not rigidity. Order is clarity. A home filled with clarity invites life. A home filled with confusion resists it. And many people unknowingly live surrounded by signals of delay, not realizing that prosperity is not ignoring them. It is waiting for coherence. This teaching was often passed quietly from teacher to student, from elder to household leader, not as a rule, but as guidance. Because prosperity, in Jewish understanding, is not something you chase. It is something you host. You do not force blessing into a home. You prepare a place for it. What we are about to uncover are not dramatic or shocking objects. That is precisely why they are dangerous to ignore. Their power lies in their subtlety. They hide in plain sight. They feel normal. They feel harmless. But spiritual law does not respond to how things feel. It responds to what they represent. And representation matters. Before any revelation can occur, there must be readiness. And readiness begins with willingness. Willingness to observe your own space with honesty rather than attachment. So as you listen, I invite you not to think about others. Not to think about neighbors, family members or friends. Think about your own home, your own rooms, your own drawers, your own closets. Prosperity is personal. Alignment is intimate. And the warning you are receiving now has been preserved for generations for one reason. Because when applied with humility and clarity, it works. Not magically, not instantly, but unmistakably. As this teaching unfolds, let it do its work gently. Let awareness soften resistance. Let curiosity replace defensiveness. Because blessing does not force its way in. It enters where it is welcomed. And sometimes, welcoming blessing begins not by adding something new, but by recognizing what no longer belongs. In ancient Hebrew wisdom, prosperity is never treated as a reward, disconnected from spiritual order. It is treated as a result, a consequence, a natural response to alignment between inner consciousness and outer structure. And to understand this, we must return to the original sources, not modern interpretations, but the root language, the symbolic framework, and the worldview of the Torah itself. The first foundation appears already in the opening chapters of Genesis. Before abundance, before life multiplies, before humanity is even formed, the Torah emphasizes one repeated action: separation. Light is separated from darkness. Waters are separated from waters. Day is distinguished from night. Creation does not begin with accumulation. It begins with discernment. This is not poetry. It is principle. In Hebrew, the word for holy, kadosh, literally means set apart. Holiness is not about adding spiritual objects or performing excessive rituals. Holiness is about what is removed from common use, what is no longer mixed, what is no longer tolerated in the wrong place. The rabbis understood this deeply. They taught that when boundaries collapse, blessing leaks. When distinctions blur, flow weakens. And when a space loses clarity, abundance hesitates. This is why the Torah is precise not only about behavior, but about space, vessels, objects, and order. The Mishkan, the portable sanctuary, was not powerful because of its gold alone, but because every object had a defined place and purpose. Nothing unnecessary was kept inside. Nothing broken was left unattended. Nothing that represented disorder remained in sacred space. Now bring this understanding into the home. In Jewish thought, the home is called a mikdash miyat, a small sanctuary, not symbolically, spiritually. The same principles that govern sacred space applied, in smaller form, to daily life. This is where the warning originates. Rabbinic teachings explain that certain objects, when kept inside the home beyond their rightful time or purpose, become carriers of interruption. Not because they are evil, but because they represent unfinished energy, and unfinished energy resists movement. Prosperity, in Hebrew tradition, is called shefa flow, not possession, flow. And flow cannot move freely through blocked channels. One of the most referenced teachings appears in the ethical writings connected to Proverbs. It teaches that a home filled with remnants of the past struggles to receive the future. Why? Because consciousness becomes divided. The mind prays forward, while the environment anchors backward. Another foundation comes from the Psalms, where it is written that blessing rests where peace resides. The Hebrew word for peace, shalom, does not mean calm. It means wholeness, completeness, nothing broken, nothing fragmented, nothing neglected. A cracked vessel cannot hold fullness. The rabbis used this imagery intentionally. A vessel is not cursed because it is cracked. It simply cannot contain what it was designed to hold until it is repaired or replaced. And this law applies not only to cups and plates, but to symbolic vessels, objects that occupy space and signal meaning. In Talmudic discussion, there is a recurring emphasis on Hashrat HaShehina, the resting of divine presence. The Shekhinah does not rest where there is chaos. Not moral chaos alone, but physical and symbolic disorder. This is where modern minds struggle. We are taught to separate spirituality from environment. The Torah never did. The environment teaches the soul what is acceptable. An object kept in a home is not passive. It teaches something daily, silently. It teaches tolerance of delay, or acceptance of lack, or attachment to pain, or fear of release. And what the soul learns, life repeats. This is why the rabbis warned against keeping objects that represent brokenness, unresolved debt, emotional residue, or borrowed energy. Not as superstition, but as spiritual psychology, long before the term existed. There is a subtle but powerful idea found in Genesis when Abraham is instructed to leave his father's house. The command is not only geographical, it is symbolic. To receive a new covenant, Abraham had to exit an environment shaped by old values. Prosperity follows covenant. Covenant follows separation. In later rabbinic commentary, this principle is applied inwardly. You cannot invite new blessing while hosting old contradiction. The home becomes a mirror. If the home contains objects that speak of stagnation, the flow responds accordingly, not as punishment, as resonance. This is why two people can pray the same prayers, read the same psalms, and live very different realities. One prays in an aligned vessel. The other prays in a conflicted one. The revelation here is not that objects magically block prosperity. The revelation is that what we choose to keep reveals what we believe is acceptable to live with, and belief shapes outcome. In Jewish mysticism, especially in later Kabbalistic thought, it is explained that sparks of energy become trapped in shells klippot when things are held past their time. Releasing the object releases the spark. The environment breathes again. This is not destruction. It is liberation. Prosperity does not demand perfection. It demands honesty. The ancient warning, therefore, is not dramatic. It is precise. Pay attention to what you allow to remain in your space, because space teaches the soul, and the soul teaches reality how to respond. What we are uncovering is not about removing 5 random things. It is about restoring the natural language of flow that the Torah has always taught. And once this language is understood, something subtle begins to shift. Awareness sharpens, sensitivity grows, and the home begins to speak back, not with resistance, but with readiness. Because when the vessel becomes clear, flow does not need to be forced. It arrives naturally. When ancient wisdom becomes practical, it stops being theory and starts becoming transformation. And this is where many teachings fail. They inspire the mind, but never enter daily life. In Jewish wisdom, that gap does not exist. Revelation is always meant to be lived, not admired. The moment awareness awakens, responsibility quietly follows. Applying this teaching does not begin with dramatic actions. It begins with observation, with a willingness to walk through your own home slowly, consciously, without judgment and without excuses. Not asking, is this useful? But asking a deeper question. What does this object represent in my life right now? Because every object carries a message. An object kept broken speaks of postponed decisions. An object kept unused speaks of fear of lack. An object tied to pain speaks of unresolved emotion. An object borrowed or never returned speaks of interrupted exchange. And exchange is the language of prosperity. In Jewish ethics, there is a powerful idea. What you tolerate, you normalize. And what you normalize, you eventually embody. When the environment is filled with symbols of delay, the mind adapts to delay. When the environment is filled with reminders of incompleteness, the heart adapts to waiting instead of receiving. So the application begins gently. Choose one space, not the whole house. One drawer, one shelf, one corner. Approach it as if you were restoring a vessel, not discarding trash. There is reverence in this process. You are not rejecting the past. You are releasing it. As you hold each object, notice your internal response. Resistance is information. Guilt is information. Justification is information. These reactions reveal where attachment has replaced alignment. The sages taught that prosperity is blocked less by what we lack and more by what we refuse to release. This is why decluttering done without consciousness often changes nothing. But decluttering done with intention realigns the inner world with the outer world. As you remove what no longer belongs, something subtle happens. The mind quiets. The chest lightens. The space breathes. This is not imagination. This is coherence being restored. And now I want you to write a new declaration in the comments. Let it be simple, but alive. Write, I release what blocks my flow, and I welcome blessing with clarity. This is not affirmation magic. It is alignment language. Words shape attention. Attention shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcome. Now let us speak honestly. Some people resist this teaching because they believe prosperity comes only from effort. Work harder, push more, strain longer. Judaism never rejected effort, but it never idolized struggle either. The Torah honors wise action, not endless tension. When effort flows through resistance, it exhausts. When effort flows through alignment, it multiplies. This is why two people can work equally hard and receive radically different results. One is pushing against friction. The other is moving with flow. And flow is created by clarity. This teaching does not ask you to become minimalistic. It asks you to become intentional. There is a difference. Abundance is not emptiness. Abundance is order. A home filled with meaning supports prosperity. A home filled with unresolved symbols confuses it. Now, in the middle of this reflection, I want to pause for a moment. If you enjoy content like this, and you want to support us so we can continue bringing teachings like this with depth, clarity, and respect for ancient wisdom, below this video there is a thank you button. If you feel called to contribute, we will be truly grateful. Your support helps keep this knowledge accessible and alive. Returning to the practice, understand this. Releasing does not mean losing. It means choosing. It means saying, this no longer defines my present, and the present is where prosperity responds. Jewish wisdom teaches that blessing follows those who create space for it. Not space of absence, but space of readiness, space of dignity, space of peace. As you apply this teaching, do not rush. Do not turn it into a task. Let it be a conversation between you and your environment. Ask your home to teach you. It will. Some objects will leave easily. Others will test you. Those are the ones carrying the strongest messages. And when they go, something shifts, not dramatically, but steadily. Prosperity rarely arrives with noise. It arrives with relief. You may not see immediate change in numbers or opportunities, but you will feel a change in posture, in decision-making, in confidence. And that internal shift is what eventually expresses itself externally. Because prosperity does not enter chaotic vessels. It enters coherent ones. This is how ancient wisdom becomes daily practice, not by belief alone, but by embodied clarity. And clarity always precedes flow. And here is where the teaching becomes personal. Because behind every object, there is a story. And behind every story, there is a human heart trying to survive, protect itself, or hold on to meaning. In Jewish tradition, transformation does not begin by condemning behavior. It begins by understanding the pain that created it. There was once a woman who lived in a modest home. She prayed daily for stability, for peace, for provision. Yet year after year, things seemed to stall. Opportunities came close but never settled. Money arrived but never stayed. One day, an elder visited her home. He said nothing at first. He walked slowly, observing. Then he noticed a small box hidden in a drawer. Inside were objects from a broken relationship. Gifts once given with love, now heavy with disappointment. The elder closed the box gently and said, "You are not lacking blessing. You are still hosting grief," she cried. Not because she was judged, but because she was seen. This is the power of awareness. Many people do not realize that what blocks prosperity is not disobedience, but unresolved emotion that has found a physical place to live. Pain needs somewhere to sit. If it is not processed internally, it settles externally. Objects become containers for memory. A cracked plate may seem insignificant, but to the soul it can represent a season where things broke and were never fully repaired. Old papers may represent fear of instability that once had a reason, but no longer serves the present. Clothes untouched for years may represent versions of yourself that had dreams which never matured, and keeping them feels safer than admitting growth. Judaism never teaches denial of pain. It teaches elevation of it. Elevation happens when pain is honored, learned from, and then released. This is why letting go can feel emotional. You are not throwing away objects. You are closing chapters. You are telling the soul, that season has ended, and I am allowed to move forward. And here I want you to pause and respond, not intellectually, but emotionally. Write in the comments, honestly and without explanation, "I am ready to let go of what no longer reflects who I am becoming." This is not for others. This is for alignment. Because prosperity does not only require space. It requires permission. Permission to live lighter. Permission to stop rehearsing old losses. Permission to trust that release does not create lack. it creates movement. The Torah teaches that when the Israelites left Egypt, they were instructed not to carry everything with them. Some things belonged to slavery, not to freedom. Carrying them forward would have recreated bondage in a new land. Prosperity is a form of freedom, and freedom always requires discernment. As you integrate this teaching, understand something gentle but firm. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not broken. You are in a moment of recalibration, and recalibration often feels uncomfortable before it feels peaceful. But peace is coming, not because you forced it, because you prepared a place for it. And now, everything that needed to be said has already been placed on the table, not as rules, not as fear, but as understanding. What remains is not information, but choice. Because wisdom only becomes blessing when it is embodied. In Jewish tradition, the highest form of knowledge is not what you know, but what you live. The sages taught that truth which remains only in the mind has not yet completed its journey. It must descend into action, into space, into daily life. This is why prosperity is described not as a gift randomly given, but as a covenant responded to. Throughout Scripture, both ancient and later writings echo the same rhythm. When alignment is restored, flow resumes. When order returns, blessing settles. Not as reward, but as consequence. Even in the New Testament, this principle quietly remains. When it is said that new wine cannot be poured into old wineskins, the message is not rejection of the old, but respect for capacity. A renewed flow requires a renewed vessel. Otherwise, what is meant to bless will be lost. This is the same wisdom spoken in a different voice. You were never meant to live in constant resistance. You were never meant to fight life endlessly. You were meant to live in coherence, inside and outside. Prosperity is not loud. It does not arrive with force. It settles gently where it is recognized. It rests where it is welcomed, and it stays where it is respected. What you have done by listening, truly listening, is begin a process of respect. Respect for your space. Respect for your energy. Respect for your future. And understand this clearly. Releasing what no longer belongs is not an act of loss. It is an act of faith. Faith that what is meant for you does not require you to live surrounded by reminders of delay, pain, or interruption. The home, when aligned, becomes an ally. The environment, when ordered, becomes support. The soul, when honest, becomes ready. This is how ancient wisdom remains alive, not in books alone, but in lived clarity. If this message has resonated with you, and you feel that this path of Jewish wisdom is opening something deeper, know that there is a continuation available for those who wish to walk further. We have prepared the Jewish Wisdom ebook on abundant Jewish prosperity, where these principles are explored with depth, responsibility, and practical guidance for real life. If you feel called, the link is available in the description of this video or in the pinned comment. Not as a promise, as a companion. And now, let this be sealed within you. Prosperity does not need to be chased. It responds to alignment. When your inner world and outer space speak the same language. When your home reflects clarity instead of contradiction. When you choose awareness over habit, blessing recognizes you. May your home become a vessel of peace. May your decisions create space instead of weight. May flow return where stagnation once lived. And may what enters your life from this moment forward find you ready to receive it.